While some may be familiar with the fictional film titled The Manchurian Candidate, starring Denzel Washington, about a secret government program that experimented on soldiers using brainwashing and mind control techniques, what many people do not know is that this is actually based on the very real declassified CIA program called MK Ultra. John D. Marks, a former State Department employee, actually wrote a book in 1979 titled The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, which was based off of the thousands of newly released documents, behavioral science studies, and interviews with MK Ultra victims. His findings are disturbing not only because of the goals of the programs, but because of the inhumane and unethical ways that such experiments were carried out. The MK Ultra program was actually an umbrella name for all kinds of experiments, which involved hallucinogenic drugs, hypnotism, and trauma-based mind control torture techniques. Well, the existence of MK Ultra was admitted by the government after congressional committee hearings. The official stance on the program is that it was abandoned and is no longer used. It doesn't take a skeptic to think that such statements are, of course, false, and in reality, identical and more advanced programs have secretly continued operating with the extra safety measures put in place to prevent their exposure from happening again. In John D. Marks' book, he explains that it's the result of 16,000 pages that the CIA was forced to release under the Freedom of Information Act. He says that, quote, "Without these documents, the best investigative reporter in the world could not have produced this book, and the secrets of the CIA mind control would have remained buried forever, as the men who knew them had always intended." From the documentary base, he says that he was able to expand his knowledge through interviews and reading behavioral science studies. Nevertheless, he says the final result is not the whole story of the CIA's attack on the mind. Only a few insiders could have written that, and they choose to remain silent. In fact, The Search for the Manchurian Candidate covers the evolution of the CIA's sinister experiments, which began in the 1950s. Unknowing subjects were often given powerful hallucinogenic drugs, including scopolamine and LSD, so the CIA could learn their effects. In fact, one man, Dr. Frank Olson, ended up committing suicide, jumping out of a 10-story building in New York in 1953. He actually worked as a chemist with the U.S. Army, and it wasn't until decades later that his family learned the true circumstances surrounding his death. They now claim that he committed suicide because they admitted that they dosed him with a bunch of LSD, but he actually may have been murdered, and the suicide claim may really be the cover story, because some sources say that Frank Olson was firmly against the Army experimenting on people with drugs. Again, he was a chemist, so it looks like they just whacked him, and actually his family has sued the government for murdering him. Just another case out in the open. And something like this, I mean, should be headline news, should be one of the top stories in America, but the occasion that it does leak out, I mean, this is from the London Guardian, so you have to have a European paper admit, but it has been in the New York Times and some other American outlets. But anybody familiar with the mainstream media, if you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, understands how this just kind of gets buried on the back page. And anybody who really knows anything about hypnotism should know that it's an actual science with very real applications. I mean, many people are aware of post-hypnotic suggestions, which actually involve using a word or a phrase to bring a person back into hypnotic trance days or weeks after they have been originally hypnotized. I mean, anybody who's seen a stage hypnotist perform knows how easily somebody under hypnosis can be manipulated. People see things that aren't there, they hear things that they're told to hear, and they can be tricked into believing or doing practically anything. Actually, one of the big experiments that John D. Marks uncovers in his book is that one man in the 1950s, actually named Morse Allen, actually in his experiment convinced a woman under hypnosis to pick up a gun that she didn't know was unloaded, and fire the pistol at another person. And then when she was taken out of the trance, she had amnesia because she was given the suggestion to forget that it had even happened. Oh, by the way, the MK Ultra experiments were partially funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. Yes, the Rockefeller Foundation, where tentacles seem to touch almost every sinister activity from the New World Order. By the way, the Rockefeller family donated the land in Manhattan where the United Nations building sits. Check some of my previous videos about the Rockefeller University actually funding a man named Joseph Attic to create facial recognition systems in the early 1990s. Really the father of facial recognition. So if you want just more than a few sound bites, if you want more than a few sentences on the highly unreliable Wikipedia, I encourage you to check out John Mark's book, The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, The CIA and Mind Control, The Secret History of Behavioral Sciences. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're new. Check out some of the previous videos and the playlists, and stay tuned. There's more videos coming soon.